Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is. Uh, I am here with the round four roundup for Release the Beast, which is obviously our online tournament that we've been playing. We've been joined in the chat by all the lovely players that we've been having in the tournament, and I'm also joined by Stuart. How are you doing, buddy?
Hello, I'm good.
You've recovered from your Nurgle blight?
Yep, just some vaccine side effects, but we're getting better. Yep.
That's good. At least we know you're not an anti-vaxxer because I thought you were a bit weird there, but never mind. Um, we've had round four, Stuart. We played a bit more of a simple battle plan this round, didn't we? We played First Blood. What's this battle plan about?
Well, this is one of the many shifting objectives to Electric Boogaloo style maps where we've got three objectives across the center diagonal, and there's a mechanic where at the start of each battle round you select a vantage point, and then in the start of the next battle round, the player who controls that objective gets an extra command point. Yep. Which I
So
forgot in my
shifting
game, but
objectives.
yep.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Me too. We forgot about that key mechanic of the battle plan. Um, but it's also worth not forgetting that none of the objectives are prime. So on round three, an objective is going to be deleted from the person who went second in the battle round. And I've found that with these three objectives battle plans, when they're not primed, um, turn three priority is huge. Have you felt that? What do we think turn three priorities? Is it winning games on its own?
I would say no, unless. Okay, so basically, I think there's two strategies for approaching this battle plan. One of them is you run in the middle, and then the other one is you play the flanks, right? Those are the basic two strategies. And often the play the flank strategy ends up with each player taking one flank. So um, the middle objective will often have a lot of chaff on it, and then it will be as if both armies deployed on the two far objectives. And in that situation, the priority is huge, right? Because you're basically deleting your opponent's home objective, right? But if you both run into the middle, then it might matter a little bit that you delete one that perhaps your opponent has more on than you do. But I mean, in my game, I don't think it really mattered because we just ran into the middle. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it also depends on what sort of army you bring in. Some army have their fast movers and their heavy hitters, like big monsters that they want to put on the flanks and not be charged to make sure they get the charge off, something like a Stonehorn. Whereas some armies are just happy to put their whole army up in the middle, like I know, like Azura and his Khorne just puts his big 20 block of blood warriors in the middle and says, "Let's fight here." Um, so I've found this battle plan interesting, and I know that some people have been caught out by the priority, so it was worth talking about. Um, but we're going to start the roundup with table one, obviously, which was a huge match. We had Miles and his Gatebreaker Gargants versus Antu and his Marathi Gotrek Snakeless. How did this game go, Stuart? It was a Clash of the Titans.
Well, I think just as a preview, when Luke and I saw the matchup, we did feel a little bit sad for Miles on the Gargants here. Just because Antu has two units that he's going to struggle to kill in the Marathi and Gotrek, and also that have the potential to both take out a Gargant or nearly do it in one turn. With Marathi, you definitely have to get Mind Razor off to do that, but Gotrek can do it without any
Yeah.
buffs. So, the classic Gargant strategy of standing on an objective and not dying is not going to work against an army like this that A, not dies, and B, does a million damage. So,
Yes.
yes, it's
And
a typical
well,
matchup,
we
I think.
saw that. Yeah, we saw that response in Miles's turn one and turn two tactics. So he was very cagey. He was deploying out of deploy range for the hero phase shooting, which I think's essential if you can from the bow snakes because then it just doubles their output. So if you can take one or two turns outside of that hero phase shooting range, then by God do it. He sent his man crushers up to capture some of the objectives and all of that, and played quite cagey with his three gate breakers. Um, and it all sort of stayed pretty cagey with just really Marathi going up and getting in the middle and the bow snakes chipping away at the Gargants until around turn 4, turn 3, turn 4, and that's where Marathi came in and whiffed. And this is not the first Marathi whiff that I've seen. Didn't get Mind Razor off. Rend 1 does not a lot when you've got Finest Hour and All Out Defense popped on you because you failed your Raw. And then she was sat there doing, 3 or 4 damage, which is not what you want from a 400-point God model.
No, she's very swingy these days. I mean, gone are the days where you can just be re-rolling ones for everything and having Mind Razor off and being, Rend 3 on the Heart Render. Yeah, now, I mean, we've settled on her being neg 1 in this tournament, and we don't know where that's going to go with future facts, but for now, we've all settled on her being Rend 1 in the Heart Render, so yeah, that +2 save, mitigates
I'm
her
a
a
fan
lot.
of the Rend 1. I'm a fan of the Rend 1 on Marathi because I feel that outside of her damage output, she still does so much. She's still an unkillable piece that's great for tagging. She's going to be in an area and you know that she's going to be there for 3 turns. And that's a really unique ability, and that's worth a lot of points in its own. And then obviously you can't forget she comes with a pretty competent spellcaster with a long-range damage spell, pluses to cast, and it's a self-buffing Mind Razor piece to buff the big one with the little one. But yeah, it feels like she either does 5 damage without Mind Razor or 50 damage with Mind Razor. This is what I've been seeing, because she can still completely tear a unit off the board, or she can whiff. And in Antu's and Miles' game, she whiffed twice, I think. But that didn't matter too much when you've got a Ginger Midget on an objective, which a Gargant can't really approach or risk getting killed. And with the bow snakes bringing the Gargants down to well below half health by the time that the Gargants need to start stepping up, they basically couldn't, because Gottschalk would just charge them and kill them. And it was very, very close, and it came down to like the last priority as to how big of a point swing it would be. But Antu took the win on this one.
Yep, so congratulations. So Antu, the first of the 4-0s now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Top of the leaderboard.
there are 4 of those, because there were 4 3-0 matchups. And so the next one that we've got was Pitari versus Olivier. So Ideneth Deepkin, with kind of a more traditional mixed list than Godtrek, and then we had the 1-drop horror with the foxes from Lumineth.
Yes. So me and Stuart, we saw the result of this game, and we saw that the Pitari running his really, really savage IDK list with a lot of Morsar Guard. He's a top tournament player, very well practiced with the army, and I only watched a little bit of this game, but I was like, there is nothing Pitari can do. There is nothing. And he's an IDK player with Forgotten Nightmares. Shooting isn't even his. He's got plays against shooting, and he's got the speed to get into the Sentinels. You would have thought, but that's not how it turned out. And this list that Olivier's bringing in with the Severeth, the Wind Spirit, the 2 other Foxes, and 30 Sentinels. This scares the shit out of me, Stuart. I think this is probably what I'm tipping to be the most brutal list of the edition so far. I think this is, if you want to win an event, bring this list. How do you feel?
I would say it like, if you're looking at it on a stat center, it might be one of those lists that, much like Caradhran Overlords, is a little bit weird on the stats, because if you dodge certain matchups, I think you're quite likely to podium, and then if you get certain matchups, you might just go that 3-3. Like, let's say you draw a bunch of Caradhran Overlords, which in my opinion is a terrible matchup for this army. Then I think you might be in trouble. If you verse other 1-drop lists and you don't win the priority, then you might be in trouble. Stuff like that, I think, is major for this army. But definitely, if you get the right matchups, there's not a lot your opponent can do. Yeah.
I think this was one of them. So, which looking at it from top down, you wouldn't think that a shooting list versus IDK is a almost an auto win. But basically, what happened was that obviously Olivier had choice of turn, and then when I joined in, I think I joined in on turn 2 when I was viewing the game. There was no eels left. all of the eels have been shot off by the foxes and the sentinels, which is what you'd expect because the eels are going to be sort of pseudo screening the big juicy stuff in the Eidolon and the turtle. So turn two, there was just the Eidolon, the turtle, and Volturnus left. That was it, and all three of them were in this shackle triangle. So he turn one brings out shackles with all this. I think it's the Law Seeker comes out and does it turn one because he can pre-game move and on an objective and then launch shackles onto you. So these three big power pieces for Pitari were stuck in this triangle. They can't run, they can't charge. They've been hemmed in by foxes. They keep getting picked up by these foxes, so they can't move very far because the foxes are pinning them in from within three. And then in his shooting phase, they fuck off to the edge of the board with their million movement in his turn, so he can't charge them. So it's very much a control list. I didn't really see it as a control list when we first did the list review show, but now I've seen it play a few times. It completely stifles your movement by the foxes getting close to you and then zooming far away from you to stopping you from progressing up the board. And the shackles obviously stop you from charging. So if you can't dispel them, which Pitari struggled to do because he didn't have any wizards in the list, you're not doing anything. And in the meanwhile, there's these 30 sentinels doing obscene amounts of damage at infinite range with mortal wounds, with rerolls to hit from Lambent Light. Fives do mortal wounds from the Lord Regent's spell and their own spell. And I was thinking about it from Pitari's point of view. Oh, you could do this, but there was no outs. There was no outs. It seemed like you just got to weather it. And I think AZ had a similar experience in round three, where he didn't feel like there was anything he could do. Couldn't get any charges off and just died. How do we feel about this sort of no interaction list? Because I don't think Pitari or AZ had a particularly fun time of it.
I think the key is to have any 3-inch weapons in your army, because the way the foxes work is when you charge, you can reduce your opponent's piling distance by 2 inches, and then you can go first with both of the foxes if you charge 2 of them in, because you're Luminath, and then pile them 6 inches and fly further away than you started from the unit, so you can be like, let's say, 3 inches away or something. And then there's a lot of things you can do with that. You can pile both units so that they're equidistant from one unit, and then that unit can't move for the rest of the game. So let's say you charge into Gotrek, for example, and then pile both foxes so that they're 2.1 inches either side of Gotrek. Gotrek cannot move for the rest of the game until you do something about it. Also because
what Olivier did to the Eidolon here.
Yeah,
trapped him.
Yeah. So it's very difficult. It's they've kind of got a lot of the mechanics that, let's say, like my Yeti army has, but without having to do much, so you don't have to like activate a command ability or really get much off to be able to just lock people in at at 2.9 away or something.
So all of these game-winning tricks to stop your opponent moving is pretty much no dice required. It's all just the fox's movement, and then the only dice that you do have really are your sentinels, which you can really buff up, and they do a lot of damage, an awful lot of damage.
Yeah, and in his list as well, he's got the Lord Regent in there, so that if the sentinels fail their 5-up do mortal wounds spell, then he has another chance of doing it. So that's a nice piece of little redundancy in there.
Yeah, and obviously when that's because the foxes do medium amount of damage, just a little bit of chip damage, but the main punch is from the sentinels. But I just don't see anyone ever getting to them with the shackles, with the foxes, with the 10 wardens that he's got to screen.
No, and if you do, which I didn't know this until about 2 weeks ago, but they get an extra attack with their bows when they unleash hell, because in Healer Nation you get an extra attack with your missile weapons when enemies are within 3. So if your opponent charges you, let's say with, I don't know, Kragnos, then you shoot him 58 times with mortals on 5, so you kill him a lot of the time doing that. So, yeah.
Yeah, me and Stuart said, if you want to win an event, go buy this army, because holy shit. The games that we've seen, you just think, well, that's it, it's over, and this is like turn 2. There's no play, and I don't ever want to draw this list at a tournament. I think I'd throw a bit of a hissy fit. But Olivier's, he's tapped into the jank. He's tapped into the strength of AOS 3. and he's playing well, and he's taking down some really good players with this list. So it just shows you that he's a good player with a good list, and that's what you need to do to take out a tournament, and he's in with a shot of it. Um, we'll move on to table three, and this is the last of the four. No, it isn't. Never mind. But it's one of our going into this 3-0, so we're going to get a 4-0 out of this. And we had Artyom, but in this round it was subbed in by Tavi because Artyom was ill, versus Alex Tubb. How did this game go, Stuart?
Well, so I mean, Artyom playing Fangs of Sotek Seraphon, and Tubbs playing a kind of techie Kabbalist Slaves of Darkness list. And I think the summary of this game is much how my games versus Fangs of Sotek used to go in AOS 2, where you kind of keep up with them until the mid game, and then it just kind of comes crashing down because they have so much summoning, and in addition to that, they probably start with more on the board than you did anyway because of the points costs. So I mean, early game here, Tubbs managed to get a few spells through because of the Kabbalist casting bonuses. So even though Croak a great unbinder, he was able to get some spells through, and this enabled him to kill half a skink unit. But he kind of struggled to contest the mid board really because of both Unleash Hell and the Fangs of Sotek parting shot command ability. And then Tavi summons some Sallies, which always feels mega bad to be
awful.
It's just awful, isn't it? It's like, oh great, yeah, you can do that as well. But yeah, anyway, so he summoned Sallies in, and yeah, Tubbs just couldn't really keep up with him in terms of the board control. And once he lost his Chaos Knights, kind of his little castle of assembled Kabbalist goons couldn't really stand up to the output that was left there. Yeah.
No. Tubbs' list, he won't mind me saying this is a fantastic control list, but it struggles with outputs sometimes. He's not killed very much. But he was able to kill a lot this game compared to some of his other games. Like Stuart said, he got some hall clearing spells to chip down a lot of the skink units, but he wasn't able to finish them off, just sort of half them or a third them, and then they would rally back and shoot you. He was able to bring down the Phoenix with his Curse Marauder combo. Get Curse from the War Shrine, teleport Marauders in all buffed up, and that does an awful lot of damage. I know when I played Tubbs, he just unbuffed Marauders took about 16 to 17 wounds off a Mega Gargant, which is significant. But he's only got 2 of those units, and
Yeah, you kind of run out. Yeah.
Yeah, he runs out. I think this list of Tubbs struggles in the late game.
I think that's just a Slaves to Darkness historical weakness, though, is because it doesn't have the summoning if you're not in Ravagers like the other Chaos armies. So, if you're playing other armies with summoning, you got to get so far ahead early to stay in the game. And he couldn't really because of the board control from the Unleash Hell and Parting Shot. So it's just a difficult matchup, I think.
Yeah, and it's worth saying as well, without, apart from a couple of unbinds, Tubbs stayed outside of range of Croak, so Croak did nothing. So this was 400 points basically down, with the exception of some unbinds and some CP from Croak. And it was still a savage game, 17-3 to Tavi. The Seraphon are definitely one of the top armies, if not the top army at the moment, aren't they?
Yep, still really good. But hey,
really
I'm playing them now, so it's alright.
Stuart's bought a Bastillodon because he's a narrative player, everyone. We won't linger on that, and we'll jump on to table 4, which is Orkman and B Timmy, and this sounded like a pretty interesting game, and it didn't turn out the way I expected, Stuart.
Orkman proving again to be the wizard that we all characterize him as. Yes, very interesting. So Orkman playing Khorne with Scarbrand and a big Boomthirst, and B Timmy playing Kharadron Overlords. And very cagey start, which we've been hearing from a lot of the games, and that's definitely an AOS 3 thing. And at the end of turn 2, B Timmy had only lost 4 Archanaut Company, and Orkman had lost all of his screens. So he's got a lot of screens and crap in his army, including Centaurs. So he only had one Centaur left from all those screens. But then Orkman wins turn 3 prior, and Scarbrand got into the Ironclad and the Balloon Boys and the General, and did some stuff. Did some stuff, yeah.
Yes. So these Orkman games that we're hearing of are literally like a lot of his shit dies, which is exactly what the Corn player wants because then he's got hero phase move coming out from the blood tithe points, hero phase fight on death, all these tools that you can add to Scarbrand, and then Scarbrand just kills half an army in one turn. I think that's 3 or 4 games that Orkman's just said, yeah, Scarbrand's just killed half their army in one or two turns.
I mean, yeah, like if you have 3 attacks on him piling in twice, he will do 48 mortal wounds on average. So, I mean that actually is half an army a lot of the time, right?
Yeah, yeah, it is. A lot of these armies are around 100 wounds, 110 wounds, so yeah, that is literally half an army. And that's what we've been seeing. So, you know, this KO list has been playing the cagey game and shooting and doing a lot of damage to the screens, but then turn 3 priority goes wrong, and then Scarbrand kills your Ironclad, your unit of engine riggers, and your general, um, which is almost, it's game winning on its own, really, isn't it? And then turn 4, Orkman was able to get his Demon Prince into the Iron Drakes, which beat him. He's running on foot. And he did this by sacrificing that lone Centaur that survived to block the Unleash Hell. So Orkman, just absolute wizard, using Centaurs to great effect. Scarbrand doing the work for him, and he's on 3-1, Stuart, with Khorne.
Yeah, well, I think he's he's doing a few things here. He's using the monsters plus crap strategy to great effect here. Just bringing just 2 big boys and just a load of garbage, and also garbage that fuels his bigger boys when they die. Right, like Centaurs.
Type mechanic. Yeah.
Centaurs are great. They're 95 points, and the best part about them, Luke, is that they're really fast, so they can die really fast. Right, you can just throw them up, kind of block your opponent in while your big slobber knocker guys are moving up the board, and then when they die, you can get that hero phase move, run up Scarbrand 6, so he's going 14, and then you can just pile him outside of 6, so you go first, even if your opponent has always strikes first, and then double pile in and just destroy the world. It's great.
Yeah, no, I'm actually really liking Khorne at the moment, and I think they fit in well with that monsters and crap playstyle, which you're seeing from a lot, and I think a lot of their toolkit that they got from their allegiance abilities works really well for AOS 3. There's always an option to maybe get a surprise battle tactic when things look bleak. And I know Azura and Orkman are the 2 fellas repping Khorne doing well. I know there's a couple of other Khorne players with 1 or 2 wins, but Orkman and Azura are proving that maybe there's more to them than meets the eye.
Yep. Yeah, I think they're doing better than we expected.
Definitely.
And I think Scarbrand probably, in an armor stack meta, he's probably better than he used to be.
The mortal wound output he has is obscene.
Yeah, he's quite a bizarre unit to evaluate though. I think we'll just have to see where he lands after a while.
I think he's solid. But yeah, in a weird way. We'll move on to table 5. We had Matt the Mayor and Alan Spogmut Job. This was again set to be a pretty big game with Matt's Soul Blight versus Alan's 4 Carnosaur Thunder Lizard list. But unfortunately, Alan wasn't feeling too well, so the game didn't. It was almost over by the time it got started. Alan made a few mistakes, he admitted, because he wasn't feeling very well. And the Graveguard was still able to put in all that damage despite being -1 damage from the Thunder Lizard allegiance ability, and it was just Matt got the double turn, took down all the monsters. Sprog didn't get his 4 up to bring back his Engine of the Gods, and didn't have anything on the board, and conceded 20-0. A couple of Matt's games have gone like this. He seems to play them very aggressively. with his Soul Blight, he gets Raw Dry up early, and he gets the 2 Graveguard units coming out of the grave sites. He always still he's getting these 9-inch charges like they're going out of fashion, but that's just a good player. If you can roll those 9s, then you're a good player. So this list from Matt seems to play very aggro, very aggressive, and it's actually what I've got round 5. So how do you feel about this aggro Alpha Strike Soul Blight list that we've
Well,
been
Luke,
seeing
you've
doing
obviously
really
never
well?
played an army that entirely relies on making first turn charges, have you?
Never.
So for those who don't know,
Never.
Luke's patented list in AOS 2 was 2 blocks of Hearthguard trying to roll 7s on the first turn. But anyway, I think we were talking about monsters and a load of crap, and I think the other option is just monsters and the boys. Like, just basically, you take your big lads, and then you take your other big lads that just happen to be a bit smaller, right? You just take, like, the ogre equivalent
Power
would be
units.
like, I'm taking 2 stone horns and then 3 units of gluttons or something, right? Like, just everything just does damage. So I might get stuck against like a bunch of screens, but if my opponent's playing like let's say a load of pink horrors or something, then you just kill them because your whole army just does 1 billion damage. Yeah.
Lots of damage.
Gargants,
when I
you
was
think would
looking at-
also be a good matchup for them for that reason, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a bit worried because I think it does depend whether he can set the tone, whether he wants to go aggro, whether he wants to play cagey, and if he does want to go aggro, then and the dice go his way, he can certainly take down Mega Gargants. That being said, Matt's one loss is against Gargants though, because he overextended on a tricky battle plan in round 3 on the Vice. So I'm looking. We'll keep an eye on this one. Definitely keep an eye on Matt. See how he can do. We have got your game next, Stuart. Table 6, Stuart Mccarran versus Philip Cartier. What
Yep.
happened?
The Yeti dream is dead. It's over. I'm not winning the tournament. Nah, it's alright. Like, I wasn't feeling overly positive about the matchup, so I was playing the Yeti list with Frost Sword and Stonehorn and Thunder Tusk, and Philip, who was subbed in by Alpaca Overlord this week because he's in the mountains. Bless his soul. I wish I was doing that. And he was playing a Legion of the First Prince list with Be'lakor, Kairos, Blue Scribes, Khorne Demon Prince, and then 3 units of 10 pinks and a bunch of endless spells. And, he's running a big old DPS checklist with some control elements. And I could have approached it differently, I think. I ran everything into the middle, seeing if I could get far enough ahead early on the points to not lose late game. And I did get ahead early because he missed a broken ranks battle tactic. But in the end, Luke, I couldn't play around everything, to be honest. With the pink horrors, like, you can't predict whether you're going to leave a couple of them around. So, I mean, in my situation, I left a unit of 4 brimstone horrors there. And yeah, it eventuated that they retreated out and rallied so that he got 6 pinks back on turn 5. And, just stuff like that. Like, Liveswarm did the same thing with the other unit of 10. So he brought 2 pinks back, which, I mean, meant a lot for the objective. And yeah, I just couldn't really keep up with the bodies on the objectives in the end. I killed a lot of stuff, but eventually all the Yetis went down to pink shooting. I mean, for them, the Yetis are only 4 wounds on a 6-up save. So if your opponent's chucking 30 shots from a unit of 10 pinks at you that are on, 4s and 4s if they get the spell off. You do kill like 1.5 Yetis a turn with that, and I've only got 18. So if he keeps summoning the pink horrors in, then eventually all the Yetis go down, and they did. And I was just stuck with 2 monsters and Hrothgorn and his goons. And in AOS 3, I think Ogre Maw Tribes struggle a bit with the objective game because if your opponent sticks their bodies as well as their monsters on the objectives, it does feel quite bad. Because you count as 10, but they're... Yeah, but their monsters count as 5, so if they put a unit of 10 dudes and a monster on the objective, they've got it. Um,
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think gone are the days of playing Gargants and Ogres where you can just plop your stuff on the objective and say you have it. Now you've got to really
Yeah.
fight for it, and I just didn't really have the damage output to get there in the end. I mean, neither did he. He didn't kill. I mean, he didn't get close to killing the big monsters, but that wasn't going to happen. So that's why the point score is quite close. But yeah, I just couldn't get through it.
No, I don't. I want to stress this to people, and this might be a little. My number might be a little bit out by a couple, but I reckon that a Legion of the First Prince list throughout the game, with the regeneration, with the summoning, with the rallying back pinks, with the life swarm pinks and stuff, I reckon there's literally about 500 wounds that come out of that army throughout the game that you have to get through. Does that sound stupid, or like there is so many wounds that you can bring back,
Well, I
right?
probably killed. I think I probably killed 250 wounds with pink horrors,
Which
but
is ludicrous.
I also killed Bellicor somehow in one turn. I don't know how I did that, but well, I do know how I did that. Do you know how I did it, Luke? I rolled 4
How'd you do it?
attacks with so I rolled the Frostfang 3 times that game, so I had a damage 6 spear on the Frost Sword. I rolled 4 attacks with the spear. 3 of them hit, 3 of them wound. He failed 3 of the saves, and he did 18 damage. And then he failed to pass 13 off them, and then he'd already taken some wound, and then he died. It was great. Totally irrelevant on the bottom of 5 for me to get an extra point, but yeah,
Love to see it.
Frostfang's pretty
But
funny
yeah,
sometimes.
no, I think it's a DPS checklist where you can do 300 damage and it not make a difference on the game state. You still lost the objectives. You still can't get up the board. You've still got screens up, and that's just upsetting to me.
You need
That
to
you
have
can do.
multiple threats, and you need to be able to break through the stuff early to kind of pin him in. Um,
You need to get rid of them so they don't rally back, so they can't be life swarmed, and that's easier said than done. Just getting 50 wounds done in one go is not easy.
No, and the other thing that he's done that Philip's done here in the list construction is he's gone for a really low triumph bit, and he's taken the Indomitable
So battle
Triumph.
shock,
Yeah,
yeah.
so the auto battle shock thing, which I didn't know is actually it's actually after you roll the battle shock, just like insane. So I think it's probably a very underrated triumph. Like if you're running a list with kind of multi-wound models, which is effectively what pink horrors are, I'd definitely consider taking this triumph, because let's say you just you're rocking around with trogs or something, and you just roll like a really horrible battle shock roll, like you roll a 6 and 2 of them are going to run, then after that you can just say, nah, I've used the triumph. And that's more often than not going to be worth the points that you would instead put in your army. Yeah, huge on pink horrors,
I
I think.
like that. I like that. Um, we'll move on from that game. Unlucky Stuart. Sad to see your runs over, but you're still doing well on the points, and definitely looking at. Well, we both got a challenge down that we want to be the best in destruction, don't we? And you reckon it's going to be you. I reckon it's going to be me. So see you in round 6, mate. Um, table table 7. We've got Charles versus Tobias. Charles running his Gotrek Marathi Snakes, and Tobias running his Tempest-Eye Cities with all the shooting, the Iron Drakes and the bridge. And Cities took it out, Stuart. Tobias keeps surprising me. I've not played Tobias, but you tell me, yeah, it's no surprise he's a great player. What do you know about Tobias? I don't know anything about him.
Yeah, I mean, every time Luke mentions him, I'm just like, oh yeah, he's a great player. It doesn't surprise me, but he is a very good player. And I think Cities is one of those armies that does require some serious generalship, right? Yeah, so I think maybe the skill expression is there with that army more than there is in other armies. Although, I mean, people meme about the Iron Drakes being a crutch, but I mean, it's much harder to play with Iron Drakes than it is with Sentinels, right? I'm sorry, but it is.
Because it is, because you have to put them in harm's way, and that's what we saw here. We saw Tobias going for the turn 1 big dick play and simply just bridge forward his Iron Drakes and shot Gotrek off. Just blam.
Love
Gotrek
to
gone.
see it. Love to see
Turn
it. I'm
one.
sorry, but you love to see it.
You do love to see it. And I'm surprised it's like got Trek down turn one, but yeah. Tobias saw his opportunity, he took it, he must have done the maths before the game, and he did it, and it paid off. And then you're looking at the dock list with just Marathi and the snakes, and it looks a lot less intimidating, right? Especially when Marathi's going to whiff against the Phoenix with the -1 to wound bubble, which is what she did. And then Tobias got the priority going into turn two and just killed all the bow snakes apart from one. So now 2 turns, and it's just Marathi left on the board, pretty much, and a couple of chaff units.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you're not gonna
then
win there, are you? Yeah.
you're not going to win there. Tobias then gets his own Gotrek into Marathi, which is a fantastic Marathi counter. Marathi's never going to kill Gotrek, and Gotrek's just going to be quite happy just to slap away at Marathi and not die and control the objective if he's got a few friends with him. Charles didn't give up though. He tried to rally his snakes and retreats out with Marathi, and he got his double turn, and he ended up having 8 snakes back from 1. Shows that the rally on these big shooting units is really quite scary. But then Marathi whiffs again, doesn't kill a single Rune Lord on his own. So after that, Tobias' turn just finishes off the dock and gets the win. Spends the last couple of turns clearing up objectives and battle tactics and gets the big win. So another list that surprised me and is doing really well on a 3. He's not lost a game because he drew one of his. So he's on 3 wins and 1 draw. So well done to Tobias there, taking out one of the big nasties of the tournament.
Yeah, and I think looking at this matchup now, obviously he played a role, but there is a huge range advantage here, right, to Tobias, in that he can, deploy his Iron Drakes outside of the range of the bow snakes, and then bridge them up and then be in range of Charles's stuff. Yeah, that's definitely a huge advantage. I don't think that's kind of talked a lot about in Warhammer as the range advantage, but definitely in other spaces it's talked about a lot. And yeah, if you're both playing a ranged army and one of you just has a bit more reach, or maybe the possibility for bridge in there, I think that's a huge advantage.
Definitely. And talking about range advantage, the next table is table 8 with Peter Dixon Irontide, Ogres versus Tavi and his Thunder Lizards, and Peter's given me a great new name for the Bastillodon, the Battlewood Louse.
Oh, Jesus.
Which is great. And before we talk about the actual ins and outs of the game, I do want to talk to you, Stuart, about the Battlewood Louse, the Bastillodon with Solar Engine, because you've just bought one. I've played against Tavi quite a few times, and I feel this Bastillodon is ridiculous for its points and was one of the most points efficient units in the game. What's the Bastillodon all about?
It sort of reminds me, Luke, of back in the day we used to be able to go Ethereal Amulet on a bunch of things, and it was like, here's my Ethereal Amulet, Frostsword, and Stonehorn. And if you really sat down and worked out, like, compared to the rest of your army, how many points is this thing realistically worth? I came up with, I reckon he was worth about 850 points in relation to the rest of my army. Maybe more than that. And I think the Bastillodon might be worth 500 points, maybe. Maybe more than that. In relation to the rest of the... Like, it does most of your damage in that army for pretty low commitment, right? Like, obviously you're committing the sub-allegiance, and in terms of opportunity cost, that is a big commitment, considering, you've got Fangs and other, and Dracothian's Tail is kind of the 2 major competitors. But, I mean, his full package is him and a Skink Priest. Like, just that will... do enough damage. And then obviously, in Tavi's list, he's also added in the Starseer for a possibility of -1 save at 24 inches, and also the Astrolith Bearer with the Geminids, so you can cast Geminids from really far away, and that turns off your opponent's all-out defense in the shooting phase. So effectively what he's done there is given himself access to kind of like -2 save. And so really the Bastiladon is
Bastiladon.
yeah, it's basically Ren 3. And then you can give it +1 to hit from the Skink Priest. You can give it reroll 1s to hit from Hand of Glory. And you can give it Venom, so mortals to wounds on 6s. Mortals on 6s to wound, which is, you know, less major than the other buffs, but still a buff. And yeah, he's doing a lot of damage. And that's certainly how this game went for Pete, unfortunately.
We've seen other armies with access to big damage monsters with high rend and stuff, but this one's striking anything it wants on the board from range. It's got 24-inch range. It can move. It can run and shoot if you get the prey off and stuff like that. So it's got a really high threat range, and it's getting these bonus points. It's almost guaranteed to get broken ranks on a bit of chaff from anywhere on the board if it wants to. It can Bring It Down. It can get Slay the Warlord and get its bonus points for being a monster without any commitment. And so it's going to get you. I reckon the Bastiladon probably gets Tavi half of his victory points, if you're talking about which models get you which victory points. And you can always use it as an anvil, you push it up and it's a 1-up save monster that can roar you and can be on pluses to save. I've had Gargants whiff against it and, you know, do literally no damage against it because of its armor. That's with Rend 3. And yeah, the Bastiladon was certainly Iron Tide's undoing, so I've moaned about the Battle Woodlouse enough now, and we'll talk about Peter's game. He was able to actually able to smash into his Carnosaur and his Battle Woodlouse early, and had an early lead. But then his Frostlord whiffed on the Sallies, because they had unleashed hell on him, bracketed him, and done some damage to him. And then they killed him back. So Iron Tide's now Frostlord down, and then the turn 3 to 5, the Sallies and the Slan just chipped everything off. I mean, Tavi's list's all about threat saturation. He's got 4 major threats and some knights that can also be turned into a little hammer if they need to be as well. And I think that the Slan was what really upset Iron Tide in this game, where across 3 Comet's Call, it did 17 units. It rolled a 6, a 6, and a 5 on his Comet Call. So 17 units worth of Comet's Call. So Peter not able to live up to that amount of output and point sufficiency from the Seraphon there.
Look, and you know, Pete did go all in on the double in this game, and
which I think he had to do.
Yes, and you know, I've played Tavi a million times in this matchup, and I wish there were another strategy that Ogres could use, but unfortunately, I don't think there is. I think you kind of just have to run at him, because if you just stand still and kind of play cagey, you're just going to lose from the range advantage. So you got to run at him. But you know, if something goes wrong, and especially on the salamanders, if you just don't kill enough of them, like at the moment, you got to kill them full to dead. That's another thing that kind of has changed. Like it used to be, if you killed them down to 1 salamander, you kind of be happy with it. But now, you know, if he's got 1 salamander left, because of Rally Luke, you know, the other one is definitely coming back when he rolls the rally. So you really got to kill both of them.
Come back.
Yeah, if you really got to kill both of them, and if you don't, it's just mega feels bad because they do so much damage for their points.
You see 1 salamander, that is 2. That is 2 salamanders.
It's rough.
Which is really, it's rough.
Yeah, I mean, Tavi said to me once, "There's no half measures with salamanders," and yep, that's definitely a true statement. If you don't kill them, you kind of lose the game. It's kind of crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I get very bitter when I think about Seraphon these days. Bastards. But the Battle Woodlouse, I'm glad that Peter's told me about that. So the Battle Woodlouse, pulling up the win against the Ogres there. Table 9, Stuart. We've got 2 of your previous opponents facing each other.
Yeah,
we've got Jonathan and Warhammer Rob.
It's interesting. So Jonathan Nonosporo on Discord is playing Idneth Deepkin with Gotrek and Ironrack and a bunch of defensive eels, and Warhammer Rob playing Nagash and some crap in Soul Blight Gravelords. Very much Nagash's band, Nagash and the crap. And yeah, I mean, I've got to say, I feel for Pora here. I feel for Jonathan because this is just a horrific matchup, isn't it? You're putting all of your points into these defensive eels to tie up your opponent's stuff, and then your opponent just rocks up with the absolute god of killing defensive eels. Like Nagash just melts through defensive eels with the arcane bolts, doesn't he? It's
He really does.
it's very difficult. And yeah, that's definitely how this game went. Like Nagash was able to mortal wound off the defensive eels, so that only Gotrek and the King were left by the top of three, and then yeah, and then unfortunately, the Deepkin then failed a battle tactic to kill the Vampire Lord on foot, and that's kind of where they called the game. Yeah, Nagash is very very tricky for those mega high armor save but no mortal wound protection armies like Knights of the Empty Throne might be another matchup
Yeah.
that he just demolishes. I suspect even with the kind of some of the magic defense there, I think he still would just tear through them. Yeah.
He's striking me as a bit of a gatebreaker. This Nagash, whether it's in OBR or Soul Blight or whatever. He's an absolute gatekeeper, not gatebreaker, sorry, gatekeeper of a list where some lists he's going to struggle against because he's not that. He's a lot of points, and if you don't really care about mortal wounds or you can outrange him, then he's not threatening. But if you bring all these unrenderable screens, all this offensive but low wound count, like the IDK, if the Nagash suddenly becomes an absolute can opener and removes half your army and wins the game on his own. So well done to Warhammer Rob there. He maybe got the right matchup, and all his patient list building paid off, and he got the big 20-0. So well done to him.
Nice. Okay, and then on table 10 we have Little Tank versus AZ. So the Flesh Eater Courts versus the Ogres in what can only be described as a historical nightmare for the Ogres. But let's see how they do in AOS3. Hey, so how did this game go, Luke?
Absolute Timmy fest. Basically, it's just monster trucks everywhere, and it was a very close game. Both of them said how great it was, and I got given a screenshot of the scoreboard that you get on the Dinoc table, and only one battle tactic was failed during the entire game, and that was on round 5. So these guys were doing whatever they wanted whenever they wanted. They were getting all their tactics off. It wasn't about deny. It wasn't about control. It was a let's do our thing. Um, the bonus points from the monsters was giving AZ a little bit of the edge. I think he got some broken ranks off against with his monsters, and Little Tank didn't. So it was actually equal. It was equal on score on round 5, and then it came down to Little Tank sending in his last Terrorgeist onto his onto the onto the last Frostlord left, and rolled 3 6s on his Maw, and this was unbuffed. It wasn't fighting twice. It wasn't re-rolling hits. It wasn't that Terrorgeist. So he just rolled three natural 6s and blew up the last monster and got the win purely from the grand strategy. There was 3 points in it, and those 3 points were purely from the grand strategy. So, that's a couple of times now where little Tank is definitely the man that can when it comes to rolling 6s. So well done to him. He's doing phenomenally well. I mean, everyone's saying in the Discord how jealous they are of his ability to roll 6s when he needs to. And I know in his last game he tabled Hippie by rolling 3 10-up charges and then rolling 36 mortal wounds or something ridiculous. So Feck really reward those high rollers, eh? And he's doing 3-1 with it with Feck, which is fantastic.
I mean, in the end of the day, there's a few other armies in the game that are similar, but Feck is one of those armies where if the Feck player rolls well, there's really not much you can do. I would say Nighthaunt is in that same camp as well with the saves and the charges. But yeah, there are some armies in the game, Luke, where if you just roll well, then it's kind of tricky for your opponent to win, I think. Yeah.
And yeah, obviously, lucky Little Tank has worked out his army. He does all the stuff he needs to. He gets all his rituals done, and he gets rewarded from the. Do Feck even have a god? No, they don't, do they? But if they did, he certainly got his favour. Table 11, Stuart. What did we have?
We had Asura, so playing the Corn versus Forgive with the Seraphon, and I mean, in AOS 2 we would have called this a very bad matchup for the Khorne, and I'm not sure where we are in 3, but I suspect it might be a little bit better than before, but perhaps not quite there yet. It sounds like it was a very bloody game. The yeah, great pun, Luke, in the show notes. The Blood Warriors nearly killed Gotrek, which is great, but yeah, nearly killing Gotrek is always an unfortunate situation, much like the Salamanders.
I think nearly killing Gotrek is worse than trying to kill Gotrek at all. I think
Yeah,
nearly killing
yeah.
Gotrek. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to either kill him or just totally ignore him, because
Yeah.
it's not like he brackets or anything. So
No,
yeah, that was
nearly
unfortunate.
killing him just means you've lost a unit and nothing else happens, because then he rallies and not rallies, heroically recovers, and then still kills the rest of your army. So got a bit unlucky there, did Azura.
And then yeah, the battle Woodlouse, the Bastillodon did work with bonus damage versus demons, because he gets that as well, which is great. So he's 3 damage against demons, which is just a lot. Especially, you know, with the Khorne demons, they're only on a 4-up save to begin with as well. So I mean, when you're on the 5-up save against damage 3, it's you know, there's the potential there for you to get one hit, you know, killed by one volley from the Bastillodon rather than 2. And yeah, in this game, Basura said he thought that he lost the game turn 1 by losing his Blood Secretor and Slaughter Priest, which are definitely, you know, especially the Blood Secretor, just an absolute key part of that Khorne list, and really rough to lose.
Yeah, I mean, Khorne and when I was playing Fire Slays now S2, if you've got these you come against these lists that can just pick off your 5-6 wind heroes, you lose so much of your synergy, you lose so much of your buffs, and then a lot of the stuff that you do have left doesn't get its points, doesn't get its synergy, doesn't get its buffs off, and doesn't do the damage or get into position where it's needed. And against shooting matchups, those 5 wound heroes are historically never good. So was it 16-4? Is that how this one went? 16-4 to forgive.
Yeah.
So, but Azura's still on 2 wins and 2 losses with the Khorne, which is fantastic, and that bumps Forgive up to a 3-1 as well, I think.
Yep. Okay, and then on table 12 we had your game, Luke. So how did your game go?
Yeah, I played another mega Timmy game. It was Gargants versus Pasq's Ogres. So whilst it was a Timmy game on paper, this was actually one of the cagiest games I've ever played. I think that's to do when you've got 2 armies that really want to get the charge off, and they're both quite fast. So you end up just staring each other across the board until one person blinks, basically, and you know, risks maybe getting the double turn or decides to go all in, and but both of us were playing it a bit more sensibly than that. So I did the Stuart Mccarran pattern turn 1 scratcher balls, and I'll have to say, Stuart, it worked a treat, because what that then made Pasq do was so all I did was literally I just put 1 man crusher, tiptoeing tiniest amount I can onto the top objective on the corner, and then my 3 Gargants did ferocious advance and basically ended up in the same place where I deployed them in the middle, ready to peel left or right if I needed them. Not 3 Gargants, 2 Gargants and Kragnos. And got ferocious advance, got the extra point for being a monster, and then Pasq in his turn feels, oh, I need to do something to match that, get a battle tactic. So he actually, I think he wasted, but he did it really early, where he puts his Hofgorn down for Savage Spearhead to get the Savage Spearhead from the Man Trapper unit that he brings in with him, and the dog. And then this is what happens if you play KG turn 1, do nothing, and your opponent does something similar, and you get the prio, which is what I did, I can give him the double turn. So I was really scared of Pasq maybe getting the double turn on me, and then just by doing nothing, I've wasted it. I've taken it off the board. It's now my opportunity to get the double turn. And then you can play a lot differently at that point. As soon as you know that threat, the double is gone, you can play a lot differently. So Pasq, again, did not a lot and got his battle tactic. Put some Mournfang on the objectives. And then what I did was I think I went on the middle and the top right objective, where I put my 2 gate breakers, tiptoeing on the objective, capping it because they count as 20. The Man Crusher dealt with Hawthorne, which I was actually quite pleased with. I thought, does he even win this fight? But the Man Crusher was
He
quite
does.
easily able to
He does.
able to to clear up Hawthorne and the dog and the three goblins. And then Kragnos was sat behind, not on the objective, but ready to go to wherever the ogres decided to charge in to take off the Gargants. And Pasqu managed to get the turn 3 to delete the objective, but the Gargants are quick enough. So in my turn 3, I was able to do a switcheroo, bring the one that was on the middle objective down to the bottom left, and bring the one on the top right to the middle. So I just shuffled my whole army sideways and still capped the objective and still stayed out of his Stonehorn ranges because he didn't bring his Stonehorns up. I think by turn 3, this was the tipping point where Pasqu started, the caginess he probably needed to start ramping it up and putting some more pressure on, but was probably a bit too slow. And I think that's what happens when you play these cagey games. You get into the rhythm of not doing a lot, and then you might miss your opportunity to strike. And when he does strike, it was turn 4 where any combat of any significance happened. That's when his Metal Cruncher guy comes into my Omelette of Destiny Gargant. He doesn't kill it. And was actually able to get really lucky because he charged his Mournfang and his Metal Cruncher ring to cap the objective off him to get Conquer, with 24 bodies, I think, with the two Stonehorns and the Mournfang. But because he didn't kill the Gatebreaker, I was like, well, this is great because my Gatebreaker's going to kill those Mournfang and he's not going to cap the objective. But it's me, so I rolled a lot of ones and didn't kill the Mournfang. So it was still quite close at this point. But because he'd moved his Stonehorn forward, Craggy was in a perfect position to clear up whatever came into one of the Gargants, so that's exactly what he did. Smashed off the Metal Cruncher, getting some bonus points for killing it with a monster, and then turn 5 he gets the priority again, and was able to bring the rest of his army, so like 2 units of Mournfang and 2 other Stonehorns, onto my general, who's not as defensive because he hasn't got the ward, and was able to bring that down for his turn 5, bring it down. Battle tactic, but then his whole army's next to Kragnos and my other Gatebreaker, and they both charged in and cleared up, killed the other 2 Stonehorns, and got the battle tactic, the grand strategy, sorry. And throughout the extra bonus points on the game, I was able to get the 14-6 win, Stuart.
Very nice. Yeah, I mean, from past perspective in this game, I mean, you had the turn choice, right?
I took first, so I could
Yeah.
do nothing.
Yeah, so, I mean, his choice here is either... So, I mean, you went first and did nothing. So his choice is either run as far forward as you can and get 1 turn of combat, right? Or do nothing and lose the game if his opponent wins the priority. So this is why going first and doing nothing is so strong, because immediately you're putting your opponent often in an end game scenario if they're a combat army. Like, if this doesn't go well, I actually lose, because, I mean, it sounds like he played a bit cagey for the rest of the game, and the reason for that is that he was always going to be potentially on the receiving end of a double, and, his army just cannot handle a Gargant's double. Like, he will actually get tabled on a double. So, I mean, once you got that priority into 2 after doing nothing, he's really starting the game, from the start of turn 2, and then now he's going to be on the receiving end of potentially 2 rounds of combat from a Gargant army, and he's only been able to get really 1 round. So, yeah, scratch your balls is so good.
But this is why I feel Kragnos is so fantastic in this meta at the moment, because I can put the Gargants up to cap the objectives and do a lot of work against screens and whatnot, but then if you want to bring your monster, a lot of people's piece that could take off a Gargant is a monster, whether it's Prince Vordry or Frostsword and Stonehorn or whatever. And I just play Kragnos as that piece behind. So if you do go into my Gargant, you may or may not kill him, but no matter what, Kragnos is there, and he's gonna one-shot pretty much any monster in the game if he gets the charge off, combined with his mortal wounds and his damage output. So it just means it forces the opponent to play a lot more cagey with their monsters, which puts you with your monsters on the forward foot in the driving seat, being able to dictate the pace of the game. And that's basically what I did. I just chose the pace of the game to suit me, and gave Pasqu all the questions to answer, and he played well. Got a bit lucky with some battle tactics, but it was a pretty convincing strategy basically that won the game, rather than any big dice rolls or anything like that. Yeah, turn one do nothing. It's definitely something I'm gonna be implementing more. I can see the strength in it.
Yeah. Okay. And then on to table 13 where we had Joel Graham with the Zinch Archeon versus our hero Raymond Lane playing the Nurgle Pasqu Blight Lord spam. And again, here I have to say this is a horrific matchup for the Nurgle army, mainly because Joel Graham's got an auto unbind on rounds 1, 3, and 5, and Destiny dice, and what that means is the Blades of Putrefaction is never going off. So instantly, like, the damage output potential of the Pasqu Blight Lords is a real struggle, I think. Yeah.
Then your army just does no mortal wounds at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like perhaps he did actually get the spell off. I'm not sure from the information he had. But yeah, he did get a lot of buffs off on the Pascals, apparently. But yeah, he just couldn't take down Archeon with all the save stacking, I think. And yeah, there's
Archeon's a problem, isn't it?
Yeah, and Zinch outsummons Nurgle is another big headline. The one thing you can do with Nurgle that you can't do in Zinch is chain summon. Like, you can summon multiple units. So if you got a bunch of contagion points for some reason, you can summon 4 units of 5 plague bearers. But I mean, now that the Garden of Nurgle battalion's gone, I mean, you don't really get that many contagion points anyway. So I mean, the Zinch summoning is just absolutely ridiculous, and until Cogs gets nerfed, it's going to be something I'm going to have to deal with, I think.
Yeah. So Raymond, he's actually lost 3 games, but he's like halfway up the ladder. He's like on 40 points or something, because all of his games have been so close. This was the only game that he hasn't been like getting like 9 or 10 points from. So obviously not going to take out this tournament, but we do want to give Raymond a pat on the back. He's had some tough matchups, and he's woke us up to the Nurgle, hasn't he? Yeah, there's definitely some legs in there.
Yeah, drawing Zinch Archeon on the mid-table isn't fun,
Yeah.
but actually I would suspect it's probably going to happen a lot in this edition, because I don't think Zinch Archeon, like, he has a lot of bad matchups, to be honest. Like, you wouldn't want to play him against you wouldn't want him to play against the Legion of First Prince list, for example, up there. Yeah.
No, I feel that the Zinch Archeon list are gonna, they're gonna still go 4-on-1 and stuff like that, but they're gonna drop their one game early, like into round 2 or 3. So then you're expecting that if you are at those mid tables, you might suddenly be getting an Archeon on round 4, which is what happened to Ray here.
Yeah, I think, I wrote an article on it, but I mean, the headline for me is like, we were talking about archetypes before, and the monsters and the boys archetype, so it's just where everything does damage, is not the archetype you want to play into Archeon, because you'll just go dead, and then you can't kill me because of save stack, and then dead, you can't kill me because of save stack, and he just does that the whole game. But if you have screens and ways to manipulate the board and board control, you got a bit more options, I think. Yeah.
Definitely. Table 14, Nikita, I don't know whether they actually played this game out or whether they had to be a forfeit. This was one of the later ones, but Nikita gets the win here with his nasty defensive Soulblight list with all the wounds and all the skeletons coming back.
They did play it out. I did see them, but yeah.
Oh, excellent.
In like the last, the wee hours of the morning, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. And then table 15 has disappeared for some reason, which I find quite funny.
Okay.
And then table 16, we had Damien's IDK versus Exalted Len on Discord, Ben, and his Knights of the Empty Throne list, Karen Guard list. How did this one go, Stuart? We had...
Yeah, historically not a good matchup for the Karen Guard, I would say.
No.
And I think that's still the way in OS3. Yep. Idneth Deepkin can spread out, and the big squad of Karen Guard can really only be in one place, and they'll struggle to kill the defensive eels anyway. And And yep, it sounds like it was a bit of a turn 3 GG kind of moment with the IDK. I think Damien won the prio into 3, is that right? So he would have got the top of 3, which in these sorts of
Which is
matchups,
never good.
yeah,
Never
in
good
these
for
sorts of
IDK.
matchups just
Yeah.
ends up being a lot of the game, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, High Tide kicks in, and then all of Damien's army is striking first, and with all the output from the eels and turtle and stuff, everything else in the lens list is going to be dead, and then the Vanguard can do some work, but they're not going to do enough to be able to win him the game at that point.
Yep. All right, and then we had table 17 with Nick versus Maestro, big old
An
Aussie
upset,
showdown.
Stuart. An upset. Nick Hem's my hero now. I love this guy. His Stormcast took out the Marathi list, Stuart.
It is a little bit of a preview, I think, for the future. So we got some annihilators. I'm actually just going to show us this on the screen here because it's it might actually be difficult for people to visualize what exactly is going on here.
Amazing. I love it.
Yeah, so
So
I
what's
mean,
in the list, Stuart?
it's got a Lord Imperator, so the new guy that allows you to deep strike from, I think it's 7 inches away instead of 9. And then the Veritant, the Incanter, and then we got Gotrek in there. 3 units of the new shiny battle line, and then 3 units of 3 Annihilators and some Praetors just to keep the Imperator alive, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Annihilators are the main thing in there that do the work, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think they've been doing really well for him. I know in this match, Maestro, obviously with his Doc and his Marathi and Snakes, he got a bit unlucky with his magic. He only got 3 spells off the whole game. And obviously we talked about it in one of the previous games that Gotrek's a good Marathi counter. And when I joined in the game, I saw just Gotrek just having a great time wailing on little Marathi for like 2 turns and actually killing it, whilst big Marathi was elsewhere. Maestro's Gotrek wasn't able to do very much. I think he had to commit a lot to screen off the backboard from the Annihilator deep striking. When they can deep strike from 7, so you have to be really tight with your stuff. And the Marathi list doesn't actually have that many bodies. It's got the big block of snakes, and then that's kind of it. It's got 2 units of 5 snakes, I think. And so I think he used Gotrek to screen out the backboard, which doesn't feel good, does it? When you've got your 400-point guy screening out the backboard.
No.
And obviously the bow snakes can do a lot of damage, but when you've got loads of MSU like Nick's got here, that they might overkill or they might split their shots and then underkill a unit, and a lot of Nick stuff's hiding from deep strike, so it's not going to get shot before it comes down and do its stuff. And Nick was able to do the same thing that you did in your game, was just take the middle objective. He went all in on the middle. Kept the Doc honest by keeping some units in the sky until like turn 3. So they basically only had Marathi doing anything in the middle, and the snakes were just picking off a couple of targets here and there, but not really doing anything major. And Marathi's whiffing because he didn't get Mind Rather off because of some unlucky spells. And
It seems to be a common
Annihilators
theme. It's a common theme, isn't it,
Yeah.
Luke, this round is Marathi whiffing, isn't it?
without Mind Razor, she whiffs. And these Annihilators are on a 2-up save, so that Rend 1's not going to be enough to punch through them. And Nick was able to grind out for a convincing 17-3 win, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, and with the Annihilators as well, they're on the 2-up save and in Hunters in here, and from what we've heard from the new Battle Tome, there's going to be a new Sub-Allegiance, which makes your whole army in Hunters, and 2-up save with access to all-out defense when you can't be roared is a big challenge. It's a lot to get through.
It is. So well done, Nick, there. Huge congratulations. 3-1 with the Stormcast. I think it's great. Table 18 was Maximus didn't get his game in. It was a bye. And then table 19, one of the other champions of the tournament, Will versus Nico Lunch.
Absolute legend. The Curse and the Arrow Boys Bone Splitters champion coming out. Now, I will say that from the events we've seen from around the world, Bone Splitters are probably in a better spot than we gave them credit for. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, he did great in this game again.
So what we've been seeing from Will is this was his first matchup of the tournament, which wasn't against Seraphon, but drew a quite a nasty shooting uh, KO list. But yeah, he said it every single game. I go, oh, how did your game go? He goes, curse and arrow, boys. So what he does, he plays really aggressive with his Warlocks and gets them in really stupid positions, so that if they don't die, um, he gets the opportunity to curse you on his turn.
It sort of
And
reminds
then
me of that scene in Lord of the Rings: The Twin Towers where the the berserker's running in with the fire torch. Bring it
yeah,
down. That's pretty much the Warlock. Like you just got to shoot him down before the curse
just
goes
some
off.
naked dancing man, and he gets in, and Will's like, yeah, I've been a bit lucky. I get my 4-ups up because it is on a 4-up, but if you can get them, um, it just turns his army into an absolute machine gun, and those arrow boys do like 15 mortal wounds on average, I think, with 90 shots.
Yeah.
Um, in this particular game, though, the Rogue Idol was able to be a huge distraction for Nicolunch. He kept punching in his army for 3 turns into this Rogue Idol and wasn't able to bring it down at all. Safe stacking, and we've mentioned before the KO, um, aren't able to stop. They're not fighting in the combat phase, so they're not able to roar you to get out of any monsters. So you're always going to be all out defensing the main target. Um, and the Rogue Idol just was able to bounce off this Rend one shooting from the KO for 3 turns. And Will messaged me afterwards and said that that's basically what he's there for, because he doesn't actually do a lot. He's just there just to soak up a lot of attention and get in the faces early so that Arrow Boys can do all the work. And it's working really well for him because he's 3-1 with Bone Splitters, Stuart.
Very nice. I mean, it's definitely tricky to imagine the Bone Splitters army without a Rogue Idol. So I think the new Battle Tome. Hopefully, we'll see whenever that comes. Hopefully, we'll see the direction of the Bone Splitters from here on out. But definitely, that Rogue Idol now is a mega important part of that army, even if it's not maybe the beat stick that it that it is in, probably like a big wireless, right, where you can you can move it with the mighty destroyers and give it a +1 damage with the war chanter and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So well done to Will there, and we'll move on to table 20. We had Hayden Seraphon versus Jacob, which is Colonel Monty on Discord's Soulblight list with his deep striking Blood Knights. So Jacob messaged me saying how he thinks this game was sort of settled on deployment, with Hayden settling up his bunker, his terrain feature right on the corner, and it was a bit overcrowded. He wasn't able to put his, because he's got a big block of 30 Saurus, and with the coherency rules, wasn't really able to get them where he needed. He had to string them around the temple so they could fit in the deployment zone. And then by the second round, he moved his Saurus up, which left space for his Blood Knights to deep strike in round the corners. And the middle is, again, so you said that there's two ways that this battle plan goes, and this was a scrum in the middle. And a unit of 5 Blood Knights was able to go toe to toe with a unit of 30 Saurus Warriors, which is a bit of a points imbalance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because of the positioning of the terrain and maybe the bit of misdeployment, those 30 Saurus Warriors are all strung out, so they was only getting 10 into combat with the Blood Knights, so the Blood Knights are actually able to win that grind, and that's basically just a huge efficiency point swing for Jacob there. And was able to get another 5 Knights later in the turn, and was just pushing those Saurus away from the objective and taking the objective, and it was all gone into the middle. He managed to get one of his Carnosaurs down, I think, with Manfred, and all he had at that point was the Slan and the Skink Priest castle at the back, and whilst that can still do a lot of work with damage and tricks and buffs and stuff, it's not going to cap objectives. So 19-1 to Jacob there.
Very nice. Okay, and then on table 21, we had Codron versus Matt something. Do you have the information for this game, Luke?
I think this might have been a Oh no, it was a win. Codrin versus Matt something. I did get a little message from Matt, I believe. Um, so it was a really good game, and it was a 1 point swing, obviously. And the pivotal moment was Archeon getting killed by the turtle in his high tide. So the
Hmm.
IDK able to surround Archeon in his high tide and bring him down, which was able to uh, equal out the game. So I think Archeon's putting a lot of work and a lot of battle tactics and getting stuff before that. So that was what able to allow Matt to get the 10-10 as opposed to getting smashed off the table there. So Matt's going to be pretty chuffed with that. Codrin getting a bit unlucky here before this game. No, getting a bit lucky, sorry. He wasn't able to get his teleport spell all tournament until this game. He got them off 4 turns in a row. So
Nice.
was getting his teleports off. Um, a bit of a weird dice rolling game where the lowest any of them rolled for a spell was a 10.
that's
So
that's mad.
spells everywhere. Spells everywhere. But slightly going in the Archeon's favour into the IDK. Quite an even matchup by the looks of it.
Hmm.
Cool. Table 22, Stuart, was Wilhelm with his Seraphon, and he actually played against MJ Pegasus, who was kind enough to step in for a buy. Trogdor's put the recruitment drive out and has got a couple more people that are willing to be buy busters because Trogdor has put a lot of work into the tournament and has been having to play like 2 games around as well. So MJ Pegasus playing with his Sylvaneth and was able to take 9 points off of Wilhelm and his Seraphon. They had a great game. Um, I don't have too much about it. Oh yes, I do. Second game against Wilhelm was much closer, and it was all boiled down to the bottom of round 5, and it was able to get his 3 points to score half or more, I think, with his battle tactics, and then he had to kill a Lario for the extra point, which he did with his Bastillodon, that battle woodlouse, winning the game again for the Seraphon. Um, Table 23, Stuart, we had Lumineth versus Cities. How does this game go historically?
Well, not perhaps not very well for the cities. I think. Now the cities list that Pearlies is running here was very dwarf heavy, and what we got from this game was that apparently he was quite on the back foot for the entire game, but he just managed to hold out, and I think some battle tactics errors from his opponent. I think just let him barely get the points lead, despite I think being quite far back on the kill points. I think, yeah.
Yeah. So what I've been seeing, if you're maybe like a newish player or player that's just getting into maybe the competitive side of AOS, battle tactics, the orders that you complete them in, identifying the moments when to choose them, and thinking about 2, 3 turns ahead of am I going to be able to do this? If I take broken ranks now, that's great, but would I be able to do that later and maybe do something a bit easier like um, aggressive expansion now because it's likely that an objective could be deleted? That's the skill, I think, in this edition. That's the area where I think you need to spend your time thinking about practicing, identifying battle tactics because these are what are making the top players win their games and maybe cost some of the players that are making battle tactic mistakes some of their games. So battle tactics a fantastic addition to the new addition to the game, don't you think, Stuart?
Yeah, initially I wasn't sold on the lore, and I'm still not sold on the lore really. But like, I mean, why does why does move running all my wizards at the start of the game to be within 3 inches of each other like constitute good strategy? You know. But definitely in terms of player experience, they're a fun addition. I think. Yeah.
Absolutely. We are going to rattle through these quickly because I know that I've got to go to work and you've got to shoot off as well, Stuart. So we had table 24. We've got Dilf, is what I'm calling him, versus MJ Pegasus. MJ Pegasus' real game this time. His Sylvaneth weren't able to get as many points off the opponent here. 13-7. IDK versus Sylvaneth is always going to be favoured to the IDK, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
They
And
they just
then
can't do enough to survive the turn 3 basically. They don't have the survivability to deal with the IDK's high tide.
No, you just don't. You just don't have enough stuff because your army's a little overpriced, I think.
Just a little bit.
And then on table 25, we had it was Gotrek, right, versus in Lumineth. Is that right? No, in
No,
in
this is
Sylvaneth.
Michael's Gotrek in Sylvaneth. Yeah.
Yeah. Versus Hippie Chef with the zombies, and Hippie Chef was rejoicing after this game and reflected on the zombies as being rather feast or famine. I think he was able to gain control of the board quite well and keep Gotrek in one place versus the zombies, while his and also his 2-up ethereal Blood Knights proved to be a menace in this matchup, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, so Michael messaged me saying how he just basically doesn't have the output to deal with the zombies coming back. He doesn't have the output to deal with the big dragon, and the big dragon killed a lot of the key stuff. It killed some of the Kernoths, it killed the War Song, which was his general, and then had the opportunity to kill the Tree Lord in round 5 for a battle tactic, and Hippie Chef getting the convincing 20-0 there. Table 26, Stuart, is the one left that I want to take a bit more time to talk about, because this is Trevor's IDK, not IDK, sorry, Trevor's KO versus Anthony Sinesh, and Trevor sent you a message, didn't he?
Yeah, he said he gave me a great rundown on a Google Doc. So I mean, it's very extensive, and yeah. So it sounds like on so the matchups were Anthony was playing Slanesh with Glucose, as he's known, Glucose from now on. So Glutos or Scallion, and some Bliss Barbs as you'd expect, and Trevor's running his KO with some Magma Dross and some other cool flavor in there. And on turn 1, the Slanesh went for aggressive expansion and capped the 2 far points with his cavalry units, but kind of left the middle one open. And then the KO went for broken ranks on the archers, which he reflected as being a bad choice in hindsight. And he managed to go in and cap the mid objective that was left a little open with the Clad and the Admiral in there. And he was able to park the Clad on the middle, 10 inches off the archers and 9 inches off both screening cavalry units. So just finding a cool little gap in there. And then he put a bunch of rounds into the right flank where he had the cavalry unit there. And he managed to also take off a good chunk of the Blissbarb archers with shooting. Unfortunately, 6-up save, 10 wounds for 180 points is still a bit rough. So if your opponent has shooting, it's a bit difficult. And then the Clad got the charge off. Yes.
Hasn't he?
Yeah. So went straight into his deployment zone. And he was sort of about 10 inches from his general, and then they went for the roll off, and the KO got the double. And went for Slay the Warlord since he was so close to the general. And the Clad did eventually finish off Sylvester and the general. And Slanesh thought that might have been the game, but it was not the game, Luke, because it continued from that point. So and then Slanesh went back with Conquer, and he managed to bring back half a dozen archers with Rally, which, I mean, that's the one good thing about Blissbarb archers that I've seen is that they are often quite big in size, and so if you can rally them back, you do get a lot of...
A good rally target.
Yeah, you do get a quote-unquote, a lot of points back. I mean, they're not really worth that many points, but yeah.
but Rally seems to be being utilised on these big shooting units, whether that's 15 Bow Snakes, 30 Sentinels, Iron Drakes, or Bliss Barbs. I think that they're the sort of units that Rally's proving to be good on, right?
Yeah, and we saw an archer charge, which is just bizarre, with Gludos into the Ironclad, and got it down to 7 HP. And he also summoned a chariot in, which destroyed some engine riggers, so to kind of cut off the healing from the Ironclad, so another key little target. And then the magic mirror hand, so the mesmerizing mirror, managed to take out the general with mortal wounds in one shot. So obviously rolled some 6s there, and also managed to bring a magma droth down to half, and we're at the bottom of 2, and a lot of stuff has died. So the KO got the double, killed a bunch of stuff from Slaanesh. Slaanesh pulled some crazy shit out the bag and charged some archers into combat. Got the Ironclad down to half wounds, and the Slaanesh got the double turn back. So then, Trevor was saying, "Oh shit, that might be the game." So we started with KO getting the double turn into 2, Slaanesh being like, "Oh shit, I think that's the game," and then the double turn back, and then the response of, "Oh shit, I think that's the game." And yeah,
Absolute roller coaster. Yeah.
he managed to. So the Slaanesh managed to finish off the clad on turn 3, and he did bring it down, and he brought down the Magma Droth with Glucose and a summoned chariot, and the gun haulers and the Sky Warders though that Trevor had were nearly untouched, and the Admiral's just on his own, hopping out of the Ironclad, staring down a block of 30 archers, and Trevor just noted here that he was scared. Cool. So he's still got one Magma Droth left. So KO in turn 3 goes for Monstrous Takeover, and he's just amassing his squad of goons left. This is one of those games where both you and your opponent have just killed so much stuff that you're just you're grabbing a Magma Droth, a gun hauler, and some Sky Wardens, just trying to piece together what you can. So he goes for Monstrous Takeover. He goes for Glucose, but as Gludos, but as he's reflected here, like Gludos is really hard to kill. He's 18 wounds, 3 up save, and he's got that -1 to hit. So
he's not going down.
He's not going down, and he didn't go down. And so Gludos is just standing there, just hitting stuff. Unfortunately, so the Magma Droth charge Gludos did nothing, and then Gludos, the problem with him, and I've played a bunch of him, is that he also doesn't really do anything. So so they're in a duel for the ages, the Magma Droth and Gludos just slapping each other with a pool noodle. He got the Monstrous Takeover, but both players at this point don't have a lot. Slaanesh into round 4 gets the priority, gets broken ranks on the remaining unit of engine riggers. Finally summons on 30 demonettes, and then he kills the engine riggers, which he selected for broken ranks, with his cavalry, and Gludos continues just dancing around with his chariot on the objective and not killing as much as he should. But he's not dying. He's not dying, Luke. I wish he was worth 5, but yeah, he's not dying. And then bottom of round 4, KO goes for Savage Spearhead. And one unit of Sky Wardens gets sent inside the Slaanesh's deployment zone. The Admiral, we were talking about it before, just stuck in the deployment zone, staring down some archers, manages to finish off the archers, and just takes a moment to drink a pina colada, admiring the fine work he's done. And then the last Magma Droth and one set of Gun Haulers and Sky Wardens finally finish off Gludos. Into round 5, where we see the KO double.
The double of the game.
Yeah, the third double of the game. And I think this was the one that really sealed the deal. The remaining KO units kind of managed to basically get off the board the rest of the Slaanesh army. And on the bottom of 5, Anthony tried to get as many demonettes onto the point, but was only able to dip a couple of toes in. And that's where the game ended. So a win for the KO there, but definitely a pretty crazy back and forth game, right, Luke?
Yeah, so Trevor and Anthony are 2 absolute gents, and I've been hearing from other people that this game was just hilarious. The amount of banter that was being said, and Trevor's been, I think he's relatively new to the scene. I've not seen him around here before, but he's been bringing smiles to people's faces, and he actually sent us a big 1.5-page essay on his game, and I've put it in the chat because it's hilariously written. so give that a read, and give everyone a pat on the back for Trevor for getting the win with his crazy KO list. We'll move on very swiftly, Stuart, because we do need to bring it to a close, I'm afraid. We had Sean Tubman and his Bone Boys getting a win against the Buy Buster, 14 points there for him. We had a Sire running his
Teen
talked
Sharky on,
about a
yep.
bad round, yeah, a bad round four matchup for some trogs getting getting Zinchaki on, but still able to get 8 points. So CJ, this is Pumpkin Hill, she's had four losses, but was able to get like 7 or 8 points on every single one of them. So she's going down with a fight, which you love to see. And then you've got Connor bringing things back with his Stompers. I think he went 0-2. Now he's up to 2-2 with his Stomper tribe, beating this is the Orc list with Kragnos in, which he was able to get 17-3 victory over. Tiger Sloth unfortunately wasn't able to get his game in. We had another win for the Gargants on table 31 with Juan Carlos getting 16 points against Cities. So I think Cities Feast or Famine again, they're doing really well with Tobias' Tempesai, and then James struggling a little bit with his cities list. So, because there's so much choice in there, some are definitely a bit more point sufficient than others, I think, and that's sort of what we're seeing with the cities lists. And then, do you want to just take us through the last couple of games, Stuart? What happened on table 32?
I don't know much about this game, Luke, but it was AOS coach with his Daughters of Cain versus my round 5 opponent, Constantine Valdor, who's playing the triple Metal Cruncher, Frostsword and Stonehorn Nightmare. Do you know anything about this game, Luke?
Yeah, basically, zero rend witch elves can't do shit against Stonehorns.
Okay, yeah, I mean that makes sense.
And Marathi also struggles to take down Stonehorns as well, to be honest with you. Um, yeah, Anthony lost a lot of shit really early. I think he took up the position in the mid board with his witch elves, and then the ogres came steamrolling in, managed to get round the side of the terrain, and were able to tag a bunch of units and just metal crunch Marathi, so he didn't have to put any attacks into her, and then was able to clear up all of the witch elves and stuff. Coach's list is struggling without the bow snakes, I think, and I think that's the story with Doc. It's a top S tier army with the bow snakes and Marathi, and without it, it struggles. The internal balance is not great in that book anymore, is it?
Well, I would like to say when the book came out and people were saying this is one of the best battle tomes I've ever seen because the internal balance is great, I would just like to reflect on that was an opinion that was being said.
And it was true, and they literally ruined it with one FAQ.
I'm not so sure about that, but
Not anymore.
look, my opinion is you can have all the prayers you want, but it's still not as good as bow snakes. That's my opinion.
Exactly. No,
Yep.
Priests and prayers have been really heavily nerfed in my opinion, and my Fire Slayer's definitely feeling the sting on that. But we'll quickly round it up. We had Hunter, who wasn't able to get his game in. Detro wasn't able to get his game in. Matt's Doc, I think he got a draw from not being able to get his game in. I think that was against someone that we saw earlier. And then Dada wasn't able to get his game in as well. We've had a few dropouts. We've seen that the lower tables getting a bit hard for people to get their games in, and we've had a few people dropping out and not getting their games in. But Stuart, if you have 5 minutes, shall we have a quick look at the tournament so far and what's going to be happening into round 5?
Yeah, let's have a look at. So I've just got the ladder on the screen here, but it's a little bit misleading because it's grouped by tournament points, but the actual winner will be determined by win loss record first. So
Well, if you quickly go on to round 5, Stuart, on the screen, we can see the potential 4 winners that we've got.
Yeah.
We've got Antu, Artyom, Philippe, or Olivier, who are both on 4-1 at the moment. So the winner of this event is going to be one of these 4 players. What have we got amongst these 4 champions?
So we got Antu with Marathi, Bow Snakes, and Gotrek, and we got so this is the first match versus Artyom Kuripin, who's playing Fangs of Sotek Seraphon. I have no idea how that game's going to go. Historically speaking, I think the Doc actually kind of won that matchup, historically speaking, but we'll have to see what happens in the new edition.
I can't put a pin on it because I think the magic dominance is going to hurt Marathi's output. Martin Razors probably isn't going to get off because Croak's probably going to deny it. But Gotrek can wade through. Can Skinks take down Gotrek with the volume of attacks? Could be a possibility, but the bow snakes are going to be able to reach into all of the squishy support heroes for the Seraphon and start taking out some of those buffs, and then the skinks become a lot less scary. So I think it's going to be a close one.
I'm actually going to predict that it's going to be a Seraphon win. That's my prediction, because like none of their stuff went up and the docks went up by a lot. So that's my prediction. Yeah. Okay, and then on table 2 we've got Legion of the First Prince, piloted by Philip Cartier versus the Foxes. I think this is going to be a Fox win. I'm sorry, Philip, but yeah, the Foxes are 1-drop here, and I mean the Legion of the First Prince list like really struggles with being stuck in the deployment zone already, and so a list that kind of specializes in that and also has the capacity to just one hit like key units with the
Kairos
Sentinels
is going down.
Yeah, I think
the Demon Prince is going down.
I think this is a
Bellicor
horrific.
might even get chipped.
Yeah, I think this is a horrific matchup. Because the other consideration here is like, you know, if he can't kill the Law Seeker, you know, it doesn't matter
Pinks
how many pink horrors.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how many pink horrors you've got on there. Like it you know, and you won't kill him in one turn either, because the shield, whatever they're called, the Blade Lords will be there to block the potential one hit from the gift of change from Kairos. So yeah, I think this is a rough matchup for the Legion of the First Prince. But Philip's a great player, so I'm sure he'll have a plan.
Mate, Philip's a great player, and he does have a few tricks he can do. The Soul Snare Shackles aren't going to do a lot because Kairos can eat them. And I don't think Olivier he's got a lot of scalpel damage. He doesn't have the huge DPS check to get through all of the pinks, so I don't think the pinks are going to go down. I think a lot of the support pieces will, but he's going to still have a lot of bodies on the board going into rounds 4 and 5, and see if he can get some points and battle tactics with them. So another fantastic game to look out for. Stuart, out of those 4, what's your prediction to take out the tournament?
I think it depends how the first round goes. So I think the Foxes are probably a lock for the second map. But if Antu wins versus the Seraphon, I think he's probably got a decent chance versus the Foxes. I think that's an okay matchup. I think he's also 1-drop by memory, so that's probably going to be a roll off. If the Seraphon win, I don't know how that goes versus the Foxes. I don't know. I think they've probably got a decent chance. I think in any case, the last round matchup is probably going to be quite close. And if we get something unexpected, like if we get Philip Cartier with the Legion of the First Prince versus any of the other 2 ones, I think that's also going to be quite close. Because the DPS check against the Marathi Bow Snakes is actually kind of a little bit rough, to be honest. They don't do like an absolute absurd amount of damage against like the 6-up save horrors.
Yeah. They don't do 300 wounds.
So although you know, like Bellicor can't stop all 3 of the big units, like just being able to stop one of them, and then you can kind of weather the storm with the pink horrors. I think Philip's got a good avenue there. I think he probably is actually favored in that matchup. But if he draws the Seraphon, I think that's actually really bad for him. Because Croak with the 3 damage flat, I think actually just burns through like a lot of his army really quickly. Yeah,
I think it's like quite swirling maelstrom at the top. Really, it's hard to pin down. It depends on how these matches go. So Antu, Arteon, Philip, and Olivier, good luck, and please let us know when your games are, because we're going to be looking at you to produce a winner out of one of those 4. Is there anything else that you've noticed in round 5 that you want to think, that might be worth looking at?
I'd just like to say my game is going to be the greatest game of Warhammer you've ever experienced. No, so Constantine and I, you know, we go way back, and we're playing an Ogre Mirror here, and he's playing 3 Frost Lords and Stonehunter with Metal Cruncher, and I was sending him some chat messages the other day, just being like, yeah, go ahead and Metal Cruncher my 6-up save Yetis. It's going to be an interesting matchup. I'll definitely put in the game schedule when we're playing. I have no idea how it's going to go, but he's a very good player, and he's definitely beaten me before, so we'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some other matchups that are bringing my attention. We've got two of my favourite stories that we've got so far in this tournament, and that's Nick and his Stormcast versus Will and his Bone Splitters, which is going to be a really interesting match. Really looking forward to that one. And then another sort of top level match, if you want to look some tactics, is definitely going to be Pitari versus Tavi. That's going to be IDK versus Seraphon. That's going to be a fantastic high level top player game if you want to check that out. I've got work. You've got to chop your leg off or do something for your whatever you're doing. Thank you very much for everyone that's joined us live. And we'll be seeing you next week for round 5 of Release the Beast. Good luck in your games, and keep keeping up the messages, keep up the Discord banter. It's been amazing. I know Chogdor's put out a little form that you can fill in to talk about your stories and your best opponents. The love on this Discord is amazing. Everyone's just giving each other big old bro hugs and high fives constantly, sharing each other's stories and hobby progress, and just keep it up. It's an amazing thing to be a part of. And I'll see you next week. Is there anything you want to say to the lovely fellas, Stuart?
I would say, don't say you're intending to be outside of. No, I'm not gonna make that hot take. That's. Well, no, I'm not saying that on this show. All right. Yeah. Thanks everyone for all the lovely messages. I might set up we might set up a channel, I think, to post the game summaries. I think that's maybe a good idea. So we'll let you know if we get to that. Yeah.
Good idea. Yeah, I like that. Cool. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.